Hello, you're watching Everard Junction again, and today is part 2 of the suburb scene. Now I've done a couple of things in between the last video just to get things moving on a little bit faster, and because you have seen me do them before, so I'll just quickly go through what I've done. I've added some fences and some grass in the backs of the houses. The fences are a nice addition, and I've also put in some basic patios that would have come with the houses when they were purchased. So they're just a sort of default looking basic concrete style patio. And I've just cut out little squares of plasticard to represent the slabs and just glued them down to the board. And you can see they look quite good. I'll be adding a little bit of painting effects to them, but on the whole they'll look pretty much like that. Not going to be any fancy tiles. They're just basic what would have come with these buildings when the estate was built. I've done some more polyfiller work around the two older buildings to get them to blend into the street nicely and blend with the pavement. And I fixed the garage down over there and added some more grass. I need to paint this pavement again just so I can get the bits where I've touched up to blend in, but that looks much better. It now blends with the pavement and looks like it's all nicely bedded in. I've also added some extra grass for the garden at the back of this house here, and I've started working on the concrete areas that will be out the back of the bakery and the corner shop, and as you can see I've added in fences as well. Over on the townhouses I have painted some of the garage doors just to add a little bit of individuality and make them look a little bit different, and it also breaks things up a little bit. Just makes them look a bit more interesting. These buildings would have been very new around the time the layout is set, 1989, 1990. These buildings are they're very similar to some buildings that I've seen in Milton Keynes, and I just liked them. I didn't really buy them because they were perfect for the era. If anything, they're probably a bit out. I just like them, and they fit this area really nicely. Whether or not at the time of construction the owners would have painted the garage doors is probably unlikely, but again, this area I just tried to make it look good rather than be 100% prototypically accurate. They looked a bit dull, all looking exactly the same. The Fiestas have all received a repaint, well, all of them but two. These two, the red and the beige one, they're still they're the original colours that you can get from Oxford Diecasts, but the other four have all been repainted, and I think they look a lot better. It's nice to have them all different colours. They won't all be put in this area, but they were downstairs and I'm using these cars to sort of set the scene and check things are in the right place, so I thought I'd repaint them anyway because I needed to get around it. But quite happy with them. They've had the usual treatment. I've done all of the window rubbers and the weather stripping around them in black paint. A lot of these Oxford Diecast cars, when the window rubbers and detail is printed onto the diecast body shells, it's done in a 2D style, and you end up with the inside section, the thicker bit that goes inside the vehicle, doesn't get covered, and it looks a bit strange. So I always go around them with black paint to make them look more realistic, more like real cars. And finally, these are some street lights that I've made. I had some double lamp motorway style lights that I bought quite a while ago. That was originally intended for the motorway scene, but the motorway scene, as you know, was taken down, and that's now a canal scene. So I had a pack of lights that I had nothing to do with. So what I did was I took the bulbs out of them and threw the plastic armatures away because they were useless to me. And I went out to B&Q and I bought some rivets and some brass tube. And as you can see, I have used parts of the rivets to make the bottom of the lamppost, and then bent the brass rod into approximately the right shape. The covers for the lamps are off the shop-bought lights that I had left up in the loft. So there's sort of a mix of existing parts, but the metal section and the rivet at the bottom, that's all scratch made. And I think they look pretty good. Obviously they'll need painting, and I've got some more bulbs, so I'll probably make a few more and add them to various other places on the layout. So the next thing I'm going to do is probably work on rebranding the garage, make it look a bit different, and I'm going to start some of the garden work as well for the houses, as well as the buildings over there. And I also need to put the street lights in. I've been able to peel off the decals that were applied to the front of the garage, so now I'm going to repaint the blue bits. I'm probably going to repaint them green. And I've got some transfer paper that I can print my own transfers onto, and I can make a different garage that's my own sort of thing. I've left on the MOT test centre transfer because it looks good, and I can just paint around the edge where the blue is to get the colour scheme of the garage looking right. I would have put an MOT symbol on anyway when I redid it, so I'm just going to leave the existing one behind. So with all the transfers rubbed off, I've painted the garage green, and I just used some Tamiya acrylic paints. I used a dark green and a white to mix up a shade of green that I liked, and repainted all of the blue parts of the garage, including the front door. There's a couple of bits on the inside I still need to do, but on the whole, it's looking good. So I've used some crafty computer paper. I've used this in the past, and you can use it to print out your own transfers. So I've done some of my own transfers in yellow, which I'll be putting onto the green. I had a slight change of plan to the garage. I forgot that when you print out your own transfers on the paper, you need to use darkish colours and make sure that the transfer is going on something fairly light. You can see here this is perfectly legible and fine because it's on white backing paper. As soon as you move it over to the green of the garage, it really dulls it down, and you can almost hardly see the sign at all. Now I forgot it did that, so instead what I've done is I have made some paper signage instead, which I think looks pretty good. It's not quite as good as I would have liked, but I think it's all right. I've used some masking tape and then gone around the edge of the signs in yellow paint to make them look like they're sort of standalone signs rather than trying to blend in with the green, and I think that improves the look of it quite considerably. So I'll be doing some interior work and stuff to it as well, but for now that's okay. I'm going to move on to some other stuff. Okay, I've been busy adding extra detail in and making further changes. So the most obvious thing is the addition of various bits of foliage and extra grass in the houses. I've also done it across the road. You can see you've got some overgrown stuff at the back there. I put all the remaining pieces of fence in. I've used all the woodland scenic stuff in a similar manner to how I did in the canal scene series. You can see I've created some sort of little flower beds in some of the gardens. I'm going to tone down the foliage in that one a little bit. That's a little bit much, but that's looking pretty good. There's the garage in position. It's looking good. And I've also got the sort of beginnings of the concrete areas out the back of the bakery and the newsagents. So getting there. It's looking better as we go. So next thing I'm going to be doing is adding a little bit of long grass in a couple of places, some overgrown sections, and I'm going to add in the street lighting, or at least drill the holes for the street lighting that I've made. Okay, I've brought the scene back up into the loft because I have glued in the street lamps, and I didn't think it was going to fit through the hatch, and turns out it wasn't. So I brought it up and then put the lamps in. So I've drilled some small holes and glued them in, and I'm now ready to start the wiring process underneath. So I'm going to start the wiring process. I wire these in pairs. These are grain of wheat bulbs, and you can run them off 12 volts, but they look very, very bright. It's a bit unrealistic. So what I do is I run them in pairs. So of the 12 volts, each light runs on 6, and I get a nice level of brightness from that. And that's what I've done up on those two over there. They're wired together and connected to a 12 volt supply. The same for the bulbs that are inside the signal box. So I'll flip it over, I'll flip it onto its side and do the wiring. Okay, so I've wired in the lights. Now they're wired in 2 pairs. So we've got 2 red wires, 2 black wires, which are ultimately joined together at the end to make connecting them up easier. So I'll hook them up and hopefully they will work. So I've just hooked them up temporarily to my power supply. You can see they're on 12 volts and they are working. I need to paint them, obviously. The tops of them are glowing because of the white plastic, but they look good. So I'm just drilling a big hole in the baseboard in the corner, which will allow all the relevant wiring and connectors to drop down through the hole, and then if I ever get any electrical problems or I need to replace some bulbs or anything, I can still just disconnect it and lift the entire town scene out without having to cut wires that are routed underneath the baseboard or anything like that. It'll all just go through the hole, and then I can disconnect them from the bus wires and just lift the whole thing out. So I'll finish drilling the hole, and then I think I'm going to add some additional lighting. Okay, so I'm going to add some extra lighting, and that will be to light up some of the buildings. I'm not going to light all of them up because that will look a little bit too uniform, but certainly some of the buildings will be lit. I'm going to use some LEDs. I don't like over lighting the inside of a building. I prefer more of a soft glow from the windows rather than like the whole sort of building like this sort of glowing orange box. So I've got some LEDs, so I'm going to rig up some wiring and some sort of way to get the LED in the right sort of place inside the house. So I might make a little bracket or something that comes up and holds the LED, with the LED facing back down towards the baseboard. That's what I've done on a couple of buildings on the layout in a few places. Here's an example of one of the lit buildings, and you can see it's not overdone. It's just a soft glow, and personally I prefer that look. I think it looks a bit better. Obviously looking at it you can see this building desperately needs an interior, but that is another job on my never-ending list of things to do. But for now I will just mirror that setup on some of the buildings on the suburb scene. Also, while I'm here, I'd just like to point out that I have fitted some new layout lighting. I've got some LED strip lights from IKEA and fitted those up on the station side of the layout, and it's really improved things. It's made things a lot better because I've been able to move the lights I previously had over on this section over to the left hand side over here. So I've got those there, I've got the 2 LED strip lights here, and I've got the floodlights down there. So if we turn on the rest of the layout lighting, we can see that the lighting is a lot more consistent. And then if we turn on the other lights over here, finally this side of the layout has got some much needed light. I still need to play around the position of those, but it's much better up here than it was. Okay, so I'm just going to be going with a single LED for each building. The buildings are relatively small. The signal box up on the top that I just showed you, that has 2 LEDs in it, and that's because it's quite a long structure. It's about twice the size of the footprint as one of these houses is. So I think 1 LED should be sufficient. So to light the buildings I have used some strip board. I've just drilled a small hole and then put the strip board through the hole, and then what I'll have is the LED, as you can see there, sitting at the top facing down, which should send a nice warm glow throughout the building. Some of the buildings will be adjusted so that only certain windows are lit up, which should look a bit more interesting and a bit more realistic. I'm also going to do the reception area of the garage and the newsagents over there. I'm going to leave these 2 buildings for now because they are behind the buildings that are here, and once everything's in place I don't think you're going to notice those ones too much. Also, I wanted to keep some buildings unlit just to add a bit of variety. I'm just going to wire them all up in series. I've got about 7 LEDs that will be eventually wired up, and they'll be hooked up to 12 volts and on a switch, so I can turn them on and off. And I will probably need a resistor, but I don't know how big yet, so I'll find out later on. Okay, I just finished the wiring for the LEDs. You have to excuse the mess, it is a bit of a bird's nest, I haven't tidied it up yet. The LEDs are in 2 pairs of 4 and they're wired in series, with the 12 volts hooked up to 8 LEDs. The division of voltage between all LEDs was not sufficient for them to actually work. I think these LEDs need something like 2.5 volts to work, and if you take 12 and divide it by 8 you end up with less than that, so they weren't working. So instead I've had to wire them in 2 separate pairs, and they seem to be working pretty well. So here we go, everything's on at the moment, and I've got 1 LED per building, so these 4 are wired together in series. Then I've got this one, and then I've actually got 2 over here because the newsagents is quite tall, so I've got 1 for the lower section of the building and then 1 poking up for the upper floors. Okay, so before I move on, just quickly, something else I've done is I've painted the insides of the buildings black. This is to stop the sort of glowing box effect that you get with these resin buildings when you fit them with lighting. We can see an example of what I mean by looking at the newsagents. So this is unpainted inside, there's no paint at all. This is just the model as it comes out of the box, and you can see the entire building is sort of glowing. Now I'll show you the difference with a black interior to the building. It makes a massive difference. So if we pop this into position, slot it into the pavement there, look how much better that looks. It's only the windows that are illuminated. There's no light bleed coming through the building at all. You can see what a difference it really makes when you compare the two. I've done the same thing for the interior of the garage. So again, if we pop it onto the scene, everything lined up. Look how much better it looks with a black inside. You don't get any of the glowy effect. So I will take the newsagents off and paint the inside of it. Okay, well I've painted the newsagents. There's still a little bit coming through the roof, but that'll go away with a second coat of black paint, so that's not too much to worry about. And I've also put the rest of the detached houses down as well. I'm really pleased with how it looks. There's still more to do, but this is certainly good enough for the lighting. I've got my street lights. The buildings are illuminated. They'll need to be adjusted slightly. I'd like to try and get some of the different windows unlit, but that can come later on when I do some of the finer details. I need to paint the floors as well. I'll probably paint the floors black at the moment. Looks a bit patchy in places where you can see into the building, but yeah, it's looking good. I like the way the light through the patio windows goes across the lawns. Looks good. The garage looks good as well. It's like they kept the desk open, somebody working late for the night. And the newsagents now looks a hell of a lot better now I've painted the inside of it black. So yeah, I'm going to tidy up the wiring underneath, and I'm going to put it back in the corner where it should be, and then from there I'll just do any fine detail work with it in the baseboard. Okay, I've put it back into the corner, and fortunately all the electrics still work. So I'll put the buildings in, wire it up underneath more permanently, and then I can start on the final stages of landscaping. I can sort out this edge over here, get a little bit of a gradient going on there, and I've got some extra fences and stuff I'm going to put at the backs of the gardens, so obviously you can't just fall off the edge of your garden onto a busy railway line. So I've got obviously the townhouses to put in over there, which I will go and get. In the future I will probably try and add some lights to those, although they're low relief so it might be a bit tricky, but I'll go and get them and put them in anyway, and carry on with making it look better. So there we go, townhouses are in. To secure them to the back seam, I've just used a bit of double-sided tape along the top, along the insides, which just stops them from falling over. They quite happily sit like that as they are, but if I bash the baseboard or cause any vibration with power tools or anything, then they are likely to fall over. So I've got some extra painting to do and some more detail work on the front drives of those, but this area is quite easy to access, so again, doesn't matter that I've put everything back in place. Looks pretty good. I'm glad I painted the garage doors. Just makes them look a bit more interesting. You've got the little garage next door as well, and then all the other buildings. Here's the night shot. Quite happy with it. Nice and bright. Again, another reason why I didn't like those two buildings at the back is because they're lit up by the street lights. As you can see, even though the newsagents is lit, it's difficult to tell because of the proximity of the street lights. But it looks good with some buildings turned off. And then obviously townhouses are over here. Be nice to try and get one of those lit up at least. Might look into that. But yeah, much better than the bare baseboard. That's how the whole thing sort of looks with the rest of the layout. So again, the whole idea of it fading together is coming along nicely. So over there it's quite rural, then we got a little bit of urban development there. We got the canal scene and the allotments, then the scrapyard, bit of hillside and a little bit of cliff. Then we move into the retaining walls. And then we have the outskirts of town. So that concludes part 2 of this suburb area, and in the next video I will be sorting out that sort of lip in the baseboard you can see on the right hand side and get that all blended in. I'll probably repaint and rebrand the newsagents much like I did the garage, and there'll be various other bits of road detail I need to do. I need to sort the driveways out for the townhouses, I need to paint the streetlights, and I need to put some people in and various other bits of detail, signage, drain covers, that kind of stuff. So hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back soon with another video.